All right, we are live with another episode of Commercial Roofing Radio. And on this one, I've got the John Black of Daly and Black, founder, owner, partner over there. John is an amazing trial attorney. I've heard many people say generationally, like the best of our generation. I'd probably say the best trial attorney of our time, or best trial attorney, period. So nobody knows big roofs, big roof claims like John. It is a pleasure to have you on the show. How are you doing today, man?
Doing great. It's nice to be here. Thanks, Alan. I don't know about the intro, but I certainly enjoyed it.
You know, it's true. It really all is. I mean, I've heard it from multiple other people. That's not just me saying it. So that's why I do that. I like to introduce you so we get past that awkward state of you trying to sit here, I'm the best, and you're a humble man. And so I don't think you would say that anyway.
God, that feels cringy even hearing it. I can't imagine saying it, but
I mean, you're pretty amazing. You're like a celebrity trial attorney. These other firms, when they need somebody to come in, and you're that ringer that they call to help them win big trial attorneys, correct?
I've always enjoyed trying cases. I mean, I feel like, you get a couple of God-given gifts if you're lucky, and mine wasn't, being great at sports, and it happened to be arguing and getting up in front of people. And so kind of honed it at a young age, and debated and got to law school and did mock trials. And then I just loved it. It's like a drug, honestly.
Well, let's start there. I mean, right. The early years, how did you get into it? When did you make that decision? Is it where you're from? Was it a parents thing? Was it just, you just knew you wanted to argue?
So, no lawyers in my family. And I think that people were like, well, did your parents prepare you? I mean, my dad was a complete asshole. So I think yes, in the sense that I was just constantly having to kind of argue my way into or out of things. And I was a pretty bad kid. Got shipped off to kind of a military school in Mexico at a young age. But when I started to pull it back together, I really got into debating in high school and public speaking, and I found that I just excelled. My dad had been in advertising. I knew I didn't want to do that, but it felt like kind of a natural transition to be kind of selling really to a jury or a judge. And then in college, I went to the University of Texas and did my undergraduate and got my master's in law degree there at the same time. And I did mock trial, and I just kind of kept loving and excelling at it. My last year, I won the state championship and got second in the country. And then the second to last year. And then my last year, I won the state championship and won the national championship. And we set a record, and they lit the tower orange. And
so I don't know anything about law before being in this position. So most people don't. So most people probably don't even know that there's a national competition or a state competition. So what exactly is that? Can you explain how that works and what that is?
Yeah. So in law school, the law schools around the country will, get together and hold tournaments. And they're different tournaments, but at the time, ATLA was kind of the big national trial lawyer sponsored tournament. And so we would get all of the different law schools together and compete at a regional, right? And then the two teams that did best in that region would go to nationals and compete at a national tournament. And it kind of rotated to different cities. And it was great. I mean, you got to see what schools around the country had really good trial programs. And Texas always had a couple of really strong schools, but it was cool to go represent. I'm a big Longhorn fan, so go Horns. But It was always nice to go represent my university. I could never do it as an athlete, so it was fun to go do it in that capacity. Within the state, there are also tournaments that are kind of similar. And so I would take every opportunity I could to go do it. And to me, it was, there are different kinds of lawyers. They're real estate lawyers, tax lawyers, divorcemen, all that stuff. But I loved the fact that in trial somebody wins and loses, and I love
competition.
It is competition, and it's it's a knife fight. I mean, it's and it's really it draws on lots of different skills. Are you able to think on your feet? Are you able to adapt to what people say? Can you make it interesting? Can you choreograph right? You're putting on a show. And you got jurors, right? 6, 10, 12, however many. And they don't give a shit about what you've got to say. I mean, they don't. They walk in hostile.
They don't even want to be there. Yeah.
None of them wanted to be there, right? The number one question I get as a lawyer is, how do I get off jury duty? And my answer
so you're taking somebody who doesn't even want to be there, and now you've got to sell them on your.
So you've got to sell them, and you've got to build credibility, and you've got to make them care about what you're talking about. And ultimately, you've got to get them to agree. And so that's a whole set of skills. So you might be the smartest guy or girl in the world, and that doesn't necessarily translate.
Not at all. I think it'd probably do the worst.
You get some really smart lawyers that are not very good in trial. And then you get some lawyers that didn't do, well in law school that are tremendous trial lawyers. There was, those that are from Texas. Joe Jamail was kind of a very big name in Texas trial law for years and years. Guy made C's and D's in law school and was the first kind of billionaire trial lawyer. And just had a mouth like a sailor. And but his thing was he was just great at talking to people and telling stories. So, I love it.
So you would say, the college aspect, I mean, that's really cool to me that there's this competition out there. There's these competitions that puts you up against each other. Because from the third party looking in, you just attribute good lawyers to good law schools. Like, did you go to Harvard or Yale? And maybe most of my knowledge and the common knowledge comes from like Suits or like TV shows or movies. Yeah. And so the fact that there are competitions that people compete, but it's solo, correct? Or is it the entire school? Is it mock trials? Is it just debates? How's that set up?
So at the college level, there are different formats of debate. There's the cross-examination debate, which is kind of the classic, and that's 2-on-2. Then there's the Lincoln Douglas debate, which is really more, it's styled after the President Lincoln's famous debates. And that's 1-on-1, and that's a little more thematic and judged on your ability to be a great orator. When you get to law school, those competitions, you have moot court, which is appellate argument, where you're arguing a case up on appeal, and that's one lawyer versus one lawyer, and they're arguing to a bench or a group of judges.
Yeah.
I never liked that, okay?
It doesn't sound as fun.
Because I like to be asking the questions, okay? In an appellate argument.
Control. Right.
Yeah, exactly. In an appellate argument, the court is trying to get to the bottom of legal issues, and so the court, those justices or judges, are asking questions of the lawyers. In trial, right, you're in control of the storytelling. And when we're in law school, the teams would be made up of 2 lawyers and 2 witnesses. And so you'd have a law student that acted as your witness. So each competition, you'd get a little packet of facts. Everybody would have the same packet of facts. And then you'd find out a day or two before, okay, you're going to be on the defense side for this round and the plaintiff for this. But you'd have to be prepared to present both sides. And so it really trained you to start looking at the 2 sides of a coin, but also getting in front of people and, presenting the case in a way that you ultimately have to in real life trials. But, the trial lawyer's job is obviously right, everybody's got their version of the truth, and people are so offended when you say, well, there's only one truth. In trial, both sides believe that. They're right. Okay.
Yeah. You have to. How do you go in there not believing you're right? You've got to be prepared to present and persuade your side in a way that is
more compelling than the others. And part of that, I've always believed. I mean, you got great speakers, great stand up and give a great speech. And that's certainly part of it. But cross-examination of witnesses, I think, is the trial lawyer's most powerful tool.
There you go.
Having the bad guy, right, up on the stand under oath, under the power of subpoena, required to answer questions, is a really powerful tool, particularly when you've got a jury watching them.
Yeah.
You get real cute answers in depositions where witnesses, you'll see videos of witnesses just saying all kinds of BS under oath. But by the time they get in front of a jury, that jury start looking at you funny if you start, giving a bunch of BS.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot of heat coming at you if you're sitting in that hot seat and getting these questions. I'm sure. I know
it is a very tough spot to be in. The one answering questions in front of a jury with a judge and a skilled cross-examiner. That's a very dangerous weapon.
Lighting the fire right under their ass, right?
Yeah. I think cases really, I'm not going to say they're totally won on cross-examination.
But it's a swing.
Those are your biggest swings.
There you go. So that's kind of what you realized you excelled in. And you were, I guess, your junior year, your second to last year, let's say.
So I did a 4-year program. So I got my master's in public policy and I got my law degree at the same time. Okay. I thought it sounded super impressive at the time. I really just wanted to stick around in Austin for another year.
There you go.
And so I got 2 years. I basically got a redshirt year, right? So I got 2 years at the tail end to compete kind of in these big tournaments. And so I got 2 swings at the national championship. And first round I got second, and then the second try.
How'd that feel?
It was pretty awesome. That's pretty badass. I mean,
second place was still pretty awesome. I didn't know if it was like I got all the way to national and lost.
I was pretty pissed about second place. I'm not going to lie.
I would be too. I mean, if we're being honest, you got second place. Yeah. You're the king of the losers.
It's nice, right? It's nice, but it's you're watching another team celebrate, man, and
but you're number 2 in the world.
Yeah. So that was
huge.
fun. Yeah, I will say this, it's not a great pickup line with the chicks in law school to be like, oh, hey, I was number 2 mock trial guy or number 1, right? They don't really care. But for me, it was such a great experience and feeling. And
but the next year you came back and won it. And so you were number 1 in the world, a trial attorney. Like that year that you graduated. And I guess it's more than just that year. So you're going up against everybody in college at that point, correct?
Going up against everybody in law school. My last year of, my joint degree program. And so you're the best in the country, right? It's like winning the, national championship football or the Final Four. And so in the year that we won it, we set a record for UT for never losing a round. So we had an undefeated season. And so the university decided to light the tower orange with a big 1. And it was the first time they'd lit the tower for an academic event. And so, I'm 20 some odd years old and, standing in front of this orange tower. And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it's not mathletes or anything, but it's pretty fucking cool.
The nerds can actually pull some stuff off, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
But it's not nerdy. My moral of the story is first of all, you're the number 1 trial attorney of your age, and that was settled in college. Like you won that in college before you even started becoming a trial attorney.
So many great trial lawyers. I mean, that's subjective. I like to think of it this way, right? I mean, they're incredible athletes out there, great pickup skill position, and there are arguments over who's the best, right, during any given period of time. I'll say this: I don't ever have a concern about going up against another trial lawyer. I prefer against really good trial lawyers because it brings out the best in you, right? You want to compete. So I love it. I mean, I just got out of a trial. It was against a very great lawyer, and it was a very great experience.
Yeah. There you go. And it's so cool. And I mean, we're obviously on commercial roofing radio. So I'd like to bring that into it. And,
of course.
So much of what I like to talk about in commercial roofing radio is sales. Sales is seeing both sides of the coin. Some of the stuff that you relate what you're doing at trial, I relate to sales, and you just went ahead and related to sales without me having to do that. So, you know, how much of that do you credit your background in sales? And we talk about how your father was in sales as an ad guy, and is that, again, did that help in being that type of personality?
Look, I grew up, my granddad and dad both owned ad agencies, and I grew up around a family that was looking at the 30-second jingle, that was looking at, you know, or saying things at the dinner table like, that's a great spot, right?
Yeah.
You know, what the hell does that mean? And so as a young guy, I quickly got acclimated to, a family that had a short attention span, which most people do have, right? Even before the internet, folks. But, and then also this idea that, you know, selling is really important. And my dad used to have a sign on his desk that said, you know, winking at a girl in the dark. Let me see if I don't screw this up. A business with no advertising is like winking at a girl in the dark. You know what you're doing, but nobody else does.
I love it.
So that's the line. And, you know, I mean, the idea is you may be the best lawyer in the world, right? You may be the best roofer in the world. You may put on, you know, the best commercial roof hands down and sit around your business meeting and be like, how are these other guys beating us, right? And at the end of the day, whether it's law or roofing or really anything else, if you're providing a service to somebody and they don't know you and they don't know your product and they don't know how you're set apart and you don't get in front of them somehow, you might as well pack it up. I mean, it's just, it doesn't work. I mean, there are great lawyers out there that have very little business, okay, that just don't advertise. And the same is true of roofers. There are roofers that are, you know, really, really good and don't, you know, enjoy the same level of success that they should or that they see their peers enjoying. And it comes down to advertising and marketing, getting yourself out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge.
I mean, in this world, I think marketing is sales. It's the same thing. It's as close to aligned as it possibly ever could. And I think sales is just conversation with intention. Everybody puts this negative connotation on sales. They're like, oh, salespeople and used car salesmen and this. But I try to get out in front. Now, a lot of people, there's a lot of influencers and people out in the world right now that are trying to get rid of the word sales because they try to church it up or whatever it is. And I think you should get away from that. There's nothing wrong with sales. Sales is only bad when it becomes manipulation. If you're trying to sell them on something you don't believe in or that you know is wrong for them. I think if somebody, like you said, if you're selling that jury, the only way you're going to win, the only way you're going to be the best trial attorney is if you truly know and believe that you are right. Now, if you know and believe you're wrong and then you're selling, that's where that negative connotation comes in, and that's manipulation. So I think we should go back to sales as conversation with intention. Everybody's selling everybody.
I totally agree. I'll tell you, as a lawyer, you know, over the years, I've frequently been in situations where we've got beauty contests, right? It's between me, my firm, and some other firm, right? And it's invariably a really good firm, right? I mean, if they're smart enough to be asking around. And, you know, these beauty contests, right? And my view on, you use the word sales, I agree with you. I would replace the word sales with educating, right? Yeah. If, as a lawyer, if I'm talking to a potential client about what we do or their case or what we can provide, to me, I try not to think of it as a sale, right? I'm trying to close or get a signature on a fee agreement. It is educating that person about what I do, how I can help, all of the questions he or she may have. Because here's what will happen. You may not, as a lawyer, get that case, okay? But you've built credibility with that person, okay? And credibility at the end of the day, believability, right, is what sells. If somebody believes that you are credible, that you're trustworthy, that you're not trying to sell them, that you're just really trying to help them understand and bridge a knowledge gap and be a resource, then they're naturally inclined to, they gravitate towards wanting to help you and be a part of whatever you're doing because it's human nature. And so if you go in with a sales pitch or the end game being a signature, you're really missing the opportunity to educate and create the credibility that's needed for that person to want to even work with you. I mean,
so I love it because when you're right and you've got, whether it's a product, whether it's a law firm, or whether it's a trial and you're trying to get them to understand, when you're right, when you have the best product, when you have the guy that's not guilty and you know they're not, you're at trial, you're just giving them the information. And that's exactly as long as you present that information correctly, you're a teacher. That's all you are. You're just teaching them. So
that's exactly right. That's why I was saying cross-examination as a lawyer is great, because it's a chance to put somebody up on the stand and walk them through the things that you've already told the jury are true. And as you do that, you build credibility. The jury's like,
I love it.
God damn, this guy's right. Everything he said in the opening is true. And when lawyers, right, because everybody hates lawyers, even me. And lawyers are full of shit, right? And the biggest trap lawyers fall into, and people too, is they oversell, right? They overpromise. And they come in and they say, well, this case is about the greatest injustice of the world. God damn, I'm expecting something big. If it ain't that, I'm like, this guy's full
You just
of
let
shit.
them down. You just let them down.
Really need to build credibility, and then people will follow.
Yeah, it's storytelling. I mean, you hit it on the head. It's like I hate it. My wife does it all the time. She'll get into like this extreme story. She's about to tell me something just amazing, and then she gets the story. I'm like, that's it? I'm just so disappointed. So if the jury could be the same thing. Speaking of stories, that kind of transitions me into the next segment. Tell me, we heard a lot of stories at dinner the other night about you and Rick and how you guys came to be. And so let's hear a little bit about after college. What were the next steps? When did Daly and Black come together? When did you become who you are today?
So you got to understand, Rick and I, from outward appearances.
Oh, hold on. And if you're watching this and you're listening to this and you don't know Rick, Rick is Rick Daly of Daly and Black.
Yeah. So Rick Daly is almost 6'6", 250, played at 270 for UCLA as a tight end, then for the Broncos for a short period of time. I mean, this is kind of the ultimate collegiate athlete, okay?
Yeah, you're a pro trial attorney. He's a pro football player.
And I'm a debater, okay? Yeah. So we came together from two very different paths. And I met Rick when I was in law school, and I'm a few years behind him. But at the time, I was dating a girl. I was in college. I was dating a girl that was a law student. And she was working during the summer at this law firm. And she came home one day and she's like, I need to tell you, there's a guy that I work with that's been kind of hitting on me. And, he's real flirty and kind of inappropriate. And I'm like, I'm going to whip that guy's ass. Okay. She's like, well, he's kind of a big guy. And I was like, I don't care. And so at the next event where all the summer clerks are present, I show up with her as a date. And I see Rick, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm not going to whip his ass. I'm going to just be really upset.
Definitely a big guy.
Rick and I get to talking. And, turns out he loves to fish. A great guy. And we end up buying a fishing boat. I guess my second year of grad school. And I'll bet Rick and I fished freaking every other weekend for the last 2.5, 3 years of my grad school career.
Wow.
And it was great. So
you're driving from Texas to the coast.
Oh yeah, from Austin. I would leave on Wednesdays or Thursdays from Austin. We'd keep a boat down in Freeport. We'd go 120 miles offshore in a boat that should have, we had like a 26-foot center console with like extra fuel tanks and bean bags in the back. I mean, I'm talking idiotic stuff. Okay. And we'd spend the night and drive it in the dark, and we just wanted to catch the biggest fish. And so Rick and I really formed a friendship around fishing and just hanging out. Then we ended up doing a lot of hunting together. We just were outdoorsmen. And he started his career at a different firm than I did, but over the years, we continued to fish. But more importantly, he'd call me when he'd have a case that was going to trial, and he'd be like, "You want to come down here and try this case with me?" And we probably tried about a dozen cases together before we even thought about starting a firm together. We always did great. We always won our trials. We had a great time. And as young guys, we were like, one day we ought to start a firm together. And we were in one another's weddings. And so Rick was a friend for, 15 plus years before we even thought about practicing law together. Best friends. So it wasn't.
That's huge. I mean, you're friends first. Well, first enemies, adversaries for a minute. Very, very brief.
How big he was. Okay, we were arch enemies.
And again, a lot of people listen to this. So guys, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, if you ever listen to those Roy D. Mercer tapes, like, how big a boy are you?
Exactly.
Rick is the guy you don't want to answer that question because he's a pretty big guy. So 6'6", tight end, professional football player.
Yeah, he's an intimidating guy. And so it wasn't until about 2013 or so that I had my own firm and Rick had his own firm, and he was doing first party stuff. And he calls me one day. He's like, "I got this wind lift case against State
Now explain
Farm."
what first party is. Some people may not be.
Insurance plays a role in lots of different kinds of lawsuits, right? Because insurance will come in and provide insurance for drivers, for aircraft, for homes. So, when something goes wrong, insurance is usually in play, but it's usually behind the scenes. Okay? Meaning, let's say you're in a car accident and some guy smokes you and T-bones your car. Well, you sue the driver of the car, right? For negligence, for screwing up. That person's insurance company comes in and will likely pay your damages, right?
Okay.
So that's called third-party insurance, right? Because you got
you the person, the insurance company pays for it.
And then the insurance is back here as a third party.
Yeah.
In almost every state, not all, but in every state, when somebody, hurts you or does some wrong, you've got to sue that person, and you can't sue the insurance company directly.
Okay. That makes sense.
There are obviously situations, though, where you have an insurance policy. You're a policyholder. It could be disability benefits. It could be life insurance. It can be health insurance, homeowners, right? Or some form of property and casualty insurance for a business. And when something goes wrong and you're the policyholder, you get to sue the insurance company directly. That's first party.
First party makes sense.
Meaning it's direct. Okay. So you're suing the insurance company directly for not doing what they should have. And what Rick and some other lawyers figured out about 10 or 11 years ago was that there was a real need for lawyers to come in and help, particularly in mass events, deal with their insurance companies. Because, and I hate to be the cynic here, but most insurance companies cheat. And some cheat a little and some cheat a lot. But they're all set up to save money and to pay
they have
less.
a vested interest in cheating. So they get paid more to cheat. It's rigged in their favor.
It's their business model, right? Collect premiums, pay less. And so Rick calls me and says, "Well, let's go try this wind lift case." I don't know a thing about roofs. I don't think I've ever been on my roof. I don't know anything about wind lift. I don't even know what it is. And I said, well, what kind of, what are the damages? He said, well, it's about an $8,000 roof. Well, how long will we be in trial? About 2 weeks. Okay. Well, explain to me how that's smart economically for us to waste our time with that. Well, you see, if we win, we get our attorney's fees. Look, it sounded like the most harebrained thing I'd ever heard, which frankly at the time, and maybe even to some extent today, still explains why so few lawyers were handling them. And what Rick figured out was if you really take legitimate cases and you are aggressive about them, right, representing the policyholder aggressively, and you can try the case, if you're willing to and know how to take the insurance company to the mat, then that $8,000 case, instead of not getting paid, will get paid. The policyholder will get what they're owed. And, a big part of that is knowing how and being able to hold the insurance company accountable in trial, right? Because, look, that same case in the hands of a lawyer that doesn't try cases or know how to try cases well isn't worth what that case is worth in our hands. And I'll just tell you, we ended up getting about a $200,000 result.
Wow.
On that trial, that was the Hansen versus State Farm case, went up on appeal. We won it on appeal. And as a result, insurance companies started figuring out, well, these guys, they're really good at trying cases. Maybe we'll treat them.
What carrier was that? State Farm?
State Farm, yeah.
There you go.
And actually, there's a really good lawyer on the other side, Chris Martin, who's one of the better defense lawyers in the country, maybe the best. But as a result, we formed a really good relationship with him, and now we resolve a lot of our stuff with them. Not everything, but being able to whip somebody's ass, putting it plainly, makes them treat you differently. And a lot of lawyers say they can, and they don't, or they can't. And so those cases are worth less. So it's a big part of, I think, the skill set that Rick and I, and now our firm, has. It makes it makes a very big difference.
And that's when you've been that way from the start. That's the coolest thing about it. I mean, you're just two friends, two buddies that met when you were in law school, formed a friendship, became fishing buddies, hunting buddies, and started doing trials for fun and beating State Farm for the tune of $200,000+, putting them on notice, right? And that's what formed a big part of what this industry is today. And they've known that all along. I love you relating it to the fight because you're a big guy, like Rick. Rick's a big guy. Somebody may look at him and not want to fuck with him, but some people may want to find out. Maybe he's soft, but you're not that you're not that attorney that's just some soft as Charmin. You're big and you can back it up.
Yeah, backing it up in trial and being able to back it up with verdicts and results in court is everything. I mean, it's like, it's like any service provider. If you've got cancer, you want to go to the best cancer treatment center, MD Center.
Yeah.
If you got a heart issue, you want to research and make sure your heart surgeon has performed the most of these procedures, really is proficient at what he or she does. Trial lawyers are no different. And what's always amazed me about our field is there are so many clients that will hire lawyers because they went out drinking with them, or because they saw an ad, or because their best friend said they're pretty good, without asking questions like, hey, how many verdicts have you guys taken in the last couple of years? How many of these kinds of cases have you tried? When's the last time you picked a jury? Right? You ask all those questions if your life was on the line of a doctor.
Yeah.
And those are the questions that set all of these trial lawyers apart. And at the end of the day, it's what's going to make your case more valuable, right? If a lawyer knows how to go down there and do that, if he needs to. Hopefully you don't, but you've always got to Hope for peace and prepare for war.
Prepare for. I mean, I've done my research. I wouldn't be able to sit here and say that you were the best trial attorney if I hadn't done my research. Now, we talk accolades, your younger years accolades, number one in the nation. You won, you rang the bell, you got number one at UT. It's never been done before. Now, what accolades does Daly and Black? Didn't you win some award that you're the number one trial attorney? Isn't it just not me saying that? There's awards.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier I've got a real issue with coming in second, and that's not to say I'm not grateful for those moments when we do really well, but when we formed this firm, the idea was very much to make sure we were eventually the best at what we did. And so over the years, right, it's a building process. You don't wake up and take the number one spot the next morning. In 2021 or two, God, I think it's 21. National Law Journal, which is the kind of the big group that looks at plaintiffs' firms and researches. There are lots of awards out there for people to just fill out a form. This is a group that actually researches kind of what you've done, evaluates your performance over the last couple of years, and they awarded us Firm of the Year in insurance. That was 2022. And in 2021, we obtained the largest verdict in the nation for an insurance case. And so we, back to back, biggest verdict, best firm in the country for insurance. Ironically, I guess it was the year before that verdict that we got second in the country for insurance. So again, I'm kind of repeating the pattern of, we come in second, it pisses us off.
Then you get first.
So we definitely have built I think a very solid reputation nationally as being, the best at in this field. And that's a real honor. It's a real credit to all the folks that we've got here and to Daly. And, it took about 8 years to do. So,
wow. I mean, there's a lot of law firms out there. I like the way you put it. Like, I don't go, if I'm having heart surgery, I find the best doctor. I don't find the best hospital. Like, oh, this is real fancy hospital. They got great food. This is everything. No, I want the best heart doctor in the world. And, not to say that you don't have a great law firm in a very awesome office, but you're the best trial attorneys. That's where I'm going. And the fact that again, if it's my house that's damaged and the insurance company fucks me around, I want to sue them for the most money possible. And you said that there's a direct correlation to how good of an attorney it is from how much you're going to get or how much you're going to make the insurance company pay. And when people explain that simply and you line it up that way, go for the best. Why would you not?
Insurance companies pay very careful attention to law firms and they rate them. They score them.
Yeah.
Okay. And the law firms that they consider to be small threats or no threats, they drag them through shit. They don't make them try cases. And at mediation, they offer nothing. I mean, they treat them very differently.
Yeah.
And law firms that are known in any field, whether it's insurance or personal injury, that are known for being able to go down and get a verdict and really, really whip your ass. They treat those law firms very differently, right? Wow. Right. They look at it, they're like, okay, this is a dangerous. They're in the business of assessing risk. That's what they do. And so they assess the risk when the law firm shows up too. And a case is more valuable always in the hands of a trial firm that the insurance company deems to be riskier for them.
There you go.
If they know that law firm will whip their ass in trial and does it a lot, they're going to pay you more, period. Okay. And insurance companies scream and yell, oh, this is you're holding us hostage and this is ransom and it's unfair and blah, blah, blah. But they do it on the flip side to the law firms that are not very good. They pay them, then they punish them. Okay. And
Well, I think everything before a trial, you're just a paper pusher. I mean, at that point, if you're not willing to take it to trial.
That's right.
So
and there are lawyers there are a lot of paper pushers out there that have no idea how to pick a jury, have no idea how to take a verdict. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are lots of them that are rich. And
hey, good for you.
Right. I guess.
I would want personally, it was when I was selling roofs and selling commercial roofs, I always told all of my clients, like, you want somebody who's going to put on the best roof at the end of the day, who's going to put on the best roof. So you are what you do. You're only as good as what you do. So who's the best trial attorney? Because that is the farthest out. That is the absolute best. And do you want an attorney that's not taking shit to trial, that's never picked a jury? Or do you want the guy that other lawyers call in because he's so fucking good? That's me.
To use the medical analogy again, it's like, you've got a heart procedure that you need, and you go see a heart doctor that's never performed the surgery.
Yeah.
That has read about the procedure, but's never done it. I mean, you would never entrust that procedure to that doctor ever, right? In trial lawyers, it's no different.
Yeah.
If you're going to hire somebody and look, the tension is no client wants to go to trial.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody wants to go down and try the case. Just like you don't want to have open heart surgery. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're hiring a trial lawyer, okay, then yes, 99% of the cases settle. But you want a lawyer that in the event you're in trial is the person that's going to perform that best for you. Right.
And again,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and if it's going to settle, they're going to settle for more because they're more afraid of the trial. If they know that you're not going to take them to trial, they're going to settle for less. And that's the bottom line. That's good.
That's right.
That's smart business practice.
That's the threat. It's the leverage. It's the sword of Damocles hanging over their head. They don't want a good trial lawyer to take them to trial. And, it's what I found is when I was in military school, I felt like about once a year, you had to at least get in a fight with the schoolyard bullies so that you at least have a little bit of street credibility. Now, you might get your ass whipped, whatever. But as a trial lawyer, I found that we really have to take a verdict every, a couple, every year, get down there and really mix it up on some big cases a couple of times a year so that you maintain that reputation. Right?
Yeah, I love it.
And with the exception,
you're constantly popping them in the chin and letting them know who you are.
That's exactly right.
Like, hey, we didn't go anywhere. We're still these guys. Don't fuck with us.
That's exactly right.
Getting into popping them in the chin and everything else and staying with commercial roofing radio because we are commercial roofing radio.
Yes.
Let's talk about some stories with some commercial roofs, or commercial properties in general. So why would you be the best people on commercial roofing? Is there any stories that you want to get into or anything you've done in commercial roofing that?
So I'm going to tell you, I think a good trial lawyer can try any case. Okay. And I didn't grow up in roofing and I didn't grow up knowing anything about roofs. I learned about it because we started a business helping policyholders. And, whether it's a small roof or it's a commercial roof, the story part of it is always somewhat similar, right? It's, hey, we got a good client. They paid their insurance premiums, right? They were loyal. They did what they're supposed to. We got this property that got screwed up and damaged, and the insurance company isn't doing what they're supposed to. So the theme of the stories is really the same, big or small. The commercial properties as a trial lawyer tend to be more interesting to me because there's a little more complexity, right? Before they get insured, there's underwriting, right? The insurance company will come in and take photos and look at it and say, yeah, we'll take your premiums. We'll take your money. We're going to insure it. We note that there's all this damage everywhere, but we don't care. It's fine. We're going to insure it anyway. Then you have a hailstorm. They come along and they're like, well, we're not going to pay for any of this stuff because it's all damage and we would never have insured it. And we're like, well, wait a second. What about the underwriting you guys did?
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite part of commercial cases over the years has been the fact that different parts of insurance companies don't talk to one another. Okay. They're just too, and the bigger the claim, right? Commercial claims are a great example. The bigger the claim, the less likely it is that the insurance company coordinated on anything, right? Underwriting did not talk to, the folks over in claims. And, the folks in claims have no idea what underwriting did. And it's not until you sue and you start getting documents, you get the claim log, get the claim notes, and you start seeing, how they handled it versus how underwriting was done, that you can start creating a great story. And insurance companies are notorious for screwing this up.
Yeah.
And, I'll tell you, God, we've handled so many commercial claims now over the last, decade or so. But, there was one in particular that in Nebraska it was kind of a hybrid nursing home and retirement community type property called Good Shepherd. And it was in a little community right outside of Lincoln that, to this day, I've never seen hail destroy a community like that storm did. And I'm talking, it killed cattle, it killed livestock,
wow.
But 4 or 5 inch, softball stuff, legit everywhere, blowing holes through, the roofing and the decking and landing in, the kitchen, like crazy stuff. And this community got destroyed, and there are all these, seniors and older folks that live in it, and, their home it's hammered. Insurance company, delays the claim, doesn't want to pay it, is arguing about everything they possibly can because it's an enormous loss.
Yeah.
And then the property starts to develop mold. Okay. Because, it's got holes and there's moisture. And, the insurance company, we sent them a letter and we say, hey guys, you guys have a real mold problem now. And they're like, very smart lawyer response. Well, I don't know if you've read the policy, Mr. Black, but mold is excluded. So we won't be paying for any mold, which is a really cute argument unless it's the insurance company that created the fucking problem and caused the mold. Okay. And, and yes, there are mold exclusions, but where an insurance company actually, through their delays and non-payment, create the mold problem and make it worse, including mold, they're on the hook. And so it became evident to them that the big problem had become a huge problem. And we ended up settling that case confidentially. But there's nothing better than being able to come in and help a business. Anybody really, but a business that has been totally disrupted, right?
Yeah.
Because of something, and getting it back to work, literally. And to me, I've always, in my whole career, have always liked representing the underdog. There's something very satisfying about representing folks that can't afford to hire a great lawyer. Okay.
Yeah.
They can't afford $1,000 an hour. But that want to hire somebody that will go toe to toe, whether it takes 6 months or 5 years, with the biggest insurance company on the planet. And we do that. And I love that feeling when you take them up to the goal line. I did last month, and they're screaming. That was a 4.5-year-old case. Wow. And they're like, we're never going to pay your number. And when they do, it feels pretty good.
Feel good. And for the little guy, and you mentioned.
No, that's right. Clients, it's nice to see a client get emotional and see a client be grateful and see that the process works. Lots of examples in the media of our jury system not working, or, people being upset with how the jury system works. I will tell you, I'm a big believer in juries, and I think juries get it right. Not always, but more often than not, and way more often than not. And there's nothing better than seeing, a client be grateful because the process worked. It's It's really satisfying.
Yeah, it's got to be an amazing feeling. You probably have a ton of those. And I want to get you on the show again. We are getting a little close on time. I want to be conscious of your time.
This is great.
So I want to hear more of those stories. I want to hear more about law itself. I mean, like you mentioned, like other people say there's a problem in the law with juries and you believe in it. And that's just really cool. But we do want to be conscious of time. I don't like to go too long with these. And of course, I've got my favorite segment. So you're a little older, right? So you were probably a big fan of game shows. And to me, the best game show was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? There was even a movie, Slumdog Millionaire, that was made after Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
An Academy Award-winning movie, an incredible movie.
Yeah, incredible movie. So you big Regis guy, big Who Wants to Be a Millionaire guy? Were you a fan of it back in the day?
I thought it was a great game show.
This is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Okay, nice.
And what was that?
Just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding.
We'll get into the questions here in a minute. I want to go over the rules with you. So the rules are a little bit different. We don't have an audience, so you can't ask the audience. There's no lifeline to go ask the audience. But we do have a couple lifelines. You can phone a friend, or you could do the 50-50. So it's going to be multiple choice questions, just like anything else. And I try to derive the questions from things about you. So I've done some John Black research lately.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Some good ones. So let's start us off. Okay. So this one, so you went to UT. That's your alma mater. That's where you went to the law school, grad school, undergrad. You're a big UT guy. You talked about it. I'm actually a big UT guy as well. Big fan. But also juries take a long time to deliberate, and that time is crucial. And we'll get into it after the question. I wonder if that time means anything to you or the lawyers. It's always something that's been interesting to me. But let's get to the question. So in 1900, UT selected orange and white as their colors, burnt orange and white. How long did that decision take? So how long did it take UT to decide what their colors were going to be? Was that A, 6 months, B, 15 years, C, 10 years, or D, 3 years?
Oh, man.
Yes. I hate it when you know it right away. I like to stump you. I want to be. I feel like it's a competition.
I actually have no idea, and I like to think of myself as a huge Horns fan. The first one was what again?
A is 6 months, 15 years, 10 years, or 3 years. Those are the options.
Let's go 50-50.
Let's go 50-50. Okay. I am going to get rid of the 10 years and the 6 months. So it's either B, 15 years, or D, 3 years.
Literally just guessing. I'm sure this is wrong. 3 years?
3 years. Is that your final answer?
Yes.
So 15 years. So in 1885, they decided that they needed some school colors, and it took them 15 years to deliberate.
That is insane.
Yeah. I mean, very political, I'm assuming.
That's so odd to me.
The runner-up colors was, and the actual question that I looked up asked what the runner-up the colors were.
Yeah.
I just changed the form of the question a little bit. The runner-up colors was orange and maroon. So you were that close from being orange and maroon.
God, that would have been just tragic. Huh?
That would have been rough. Real close to A&M colors too.
Combination.
Now, talking about time to deliberate, is that something you take into account when your nerves are crazy and jury's in deliberation? Does that make a difference? I mean, surely nothing takes 15 years, but
I'm going to reveal a quirk about myself and tell you that I do not get nervous about trial. Not a single part of it until the jury is out deliberating. When the jury goes out to deliberate, I'm a wreck. And I usually leave the courthouse until someone calls me back. If the jury takes, in a civil case where you're fighting over money, you want the jury to be out longish.
Longish.
Okay? Not
there's long and then there's too long. Yeah.
You don't, because if a jury goes and returns an answer quickly, then they've said no to one of the questions you want them to say yes to.
Yep.
And the case is over. They're working through a set of questions. Okay. And if they say no to the first one or two, liability, case is over. Where juries spend the most time usually is discussing damages. So they'll say, if you win, if I win, they'll say, yes, insurance company breached the contract. Yes, they failed to do or conduct a reasonable investigation. Then they get to damages, and that's where you'll see more discussion and disagreement. And then if they get to punitives, it's even longer, right? So I had a jury send me a question that made me very nervous once. It said, can we change one of our answers on damages? And I was like, oh, shit. And the judge is like, what do you want me to tell him? The judge has to ask both parties. Ultimately, the judge told him, you've got to write your new answer in over the old answer. Just cross out the old answer. And I'm like, well, at least it's a damage question, so I must have won, but that's kind of weird that what they did was they reduced punitive damages in my case from $1 billion to $100 million. So they only gave me $116 million.
Only 100. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Instead of 1 point whatever billion. I was one vote away from getting a $1 billion+ verdict about a year ago. But
we got to get into that story on the next episode or something.
Anyway.
Well, that's cool. So I did not know that. I didn't know shorter's better or whatever else. So the next question, we didn't even get a chance to talk about your hobbies or anything like that other than fishing. Running. You're a big running guy.
Terrible runner. I've done the Ironman for off and on for about 15 years.
Okay.
But I have to run.
Well, there's a little debate, I know, from most runners about this question, but it's actually a scientific question.
Okay.
And so much is about where you're at and what you're doing, and it's mental and everything else, but there's some science to this. What is the optimal running temperature? So, is that A, 45 degrees, B, 62 degrees, C, 75 degrees, or D, 58 degrees? And this is all Fahrenheit.
So my best runs have always been when it's cold, for reasons that should be obvious, right? Your core heats up as your heart rate goes up, and you try to cool it down with water. And so I would not say 75. 50. What are the others?
58, 62, and 45.
58.
Got a pen and paper here. This is a first.
So I would say.
Now stay off Google over there.
No, I'm not Googling. I'm just thinking. I think 62 is still a little too warm to be ideal. 45 starts getting pretty chilly.
45 sounds cold. That forward, I feel it.
I'm going to say 58 degrees.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah.
So it's 45.
Really?
45 degrees.
I know cold is, you got to go cold, but 45 felt too cold to me. Because ironic, fastest Ironman marathon was Florida in 2012 or 13. Anyway, but it was, that kind of makes sense. It was 38 or 39 degrees when I started the marathon.
Yeah. Perfect running temperature.
And I hammered it. So,
there's got to be a lot to that. Your body heats up, the temperature cools you down.
It's huge. In an Ironman, so much of your kind of race day strategy is keeping, ways to keep your core temperature down. And you'll see all these triathletes with, these goofy looking suits and socks and awful looking visors and all that. All of those things are designed to keep their core temperature down.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next one. So you're 0 for 2 so far.
Yeah, this is terrible.
Maybe you meet that criteria of a really just not good student. A C student, great. I tried to go harder.
I can own that. It's fine.
Okay, here's another one. This one's fun and has a lot to do with your fishing. So you're a big fishing guy. You and Daly, we talked about that. Big fishing guy, and competitive. And you're a runner. So this one talks about miles per hour that fish can swim. So how many miles per hour, so how fast can a tuna fish swim? Is that going to be A, 65 miles per hour, B, 38 miles per hour, C, 47 miles per hour, or D, 80 miles per hour?
About that. What was the first one?
65, 38, 47, or 80?
Yeah, so it's one of the faster fish in the ocean.
Yeah.
I've caught a lot of tuna. It definitely isn't 38 miles an hour.
It seems slow. I feel like I can run faster than that.
I mean, it's going to be, the first one was
65.
And what was?
And remember, you've got phone a friend left, so
I might call Daly on this one. All right, what are the options? 65,
38, 47, and 80.
It ain't 80, because the fastest fish in the ocean is slower than 80. I remember that. I think it's either a marlin or a wahoo.
Okay, and so you're phoning a friend right now.
I'm phoning Rick. Let's see if he...
Let's put it on speakerphone if you could.
Who's the biggest problem?
Rick, don't answer.
Rick may not answer. Let's see if I call him at the office. I'm inclined to just...
Daly and Black, can I help you?
Is Rick here?
I believe...
Will you transfer me to him, please? It's Black.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
It's John Black.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Black. This is Linda. I'm new today.
Oh, that's okay.
Hold on 1 second.
We have a new receptionist today. I didn't even know.
Making the receptionist nervous. You got the boss calling the office.
In making an insurance claim, it can feel like the odds are stacked against you. Insurance companies have a lot.
Did you write that jingle?
Resources.
Huh?
Did you write that jingle?
Negotiators,
I actually
insurance
did.
companies are at a
There you go.
Unless
Let's see if he answers.
Daly and Black levels the playing field with lawyers and professionals that
I like my
on
jingle.
your side.
I like your jingle too.
Prosecute your case, leveling the playing field with Daly and Black.
Alan, I'm inclined to go with 65 because
We believe in being your partner in litigation.
Down to the tone. When done,
No, he's not there.
Oh,
65.
wow.
Final answer.
65. Final answer, just straight up. You are 0 for 3. I had no idea I'd fully stump you. 0 for 3. It is 47 miles per hour.
No.
And I went down a lot of rabbit hole of research for this one. So,
Really?
yeah, I think 65, and then I started thinking of a cheetah. So cheetahs are 65, and then because 65 was sailfish, but there's actually some black marlin that's the fastest, and it's close to 80.
Tuna is right up there with sailfish and marlin.
Mm-mm. No, sailfish and marlin.
I will tell you, having caught a lot of tuna, I mean, those things will spool a reel, as a big one as quickly as a, marlin.
Yeah. There's a big fishing tournament down there in your area, the Marlin one. It's like the biggest one with the grand prize of like $3 million or something like that.
Where, down in Cabo?
In Galveston area.
Galveston.
Isn't there some big
the
Marlin
biggest
tournament?
is the Bisbee tournament, I think. And it's in Cabo. I think Bisbee blue and black. And then I used to fish with my dad the $1 million marlin tournament in Cayman. The one you're thinking of is Poco Bueno, which is down. I think it's in Port A, and that's a big billfish tournament.
Yeah, I've got a buddy who won it or he was on the boat. I think it was his dad's friend's boat, and he was drunk, passed out on the boat, and so they won.
That's a big tournament. Huge Calcutta, like that's a big party.
Yeah.
I've never fished in that, but our boat was too small, man. We were small time.
Yeah,
you know?
Small time. You don't have a big fishing boat now?
I do not. Rick and I were smart enough to know that owning one boat was enough.
Yeah, you wouldn't get any work done. Always.
Yeah, we'll rent them, but I'm never going to own a boat again.
Okay. There you go.
So,
All
for
right.
3.
Well, the next one has to do with fishing as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of fishermen in America. I did not know this. So in millions, how many Americans fish for sport? How many fishermen in millions go out there? So the fact that it's in millions already, there's a lot. Is 8 million Americans, 22 million Americans, 18 million Americans, or 40 million Americans fish for sport?
Well, I mean, you got I call it 300 million people in the United States. So 40 million isn't that much if you're really talking 1 in 9. I'm going to say 40 million.
Okay, just straight final answer, just straight 40 million.
Yeah, I'm a decisive person. Maybe not always right. I'm decisive.
Well, you got one right. So good job. 40 million is right. That is correct. Yeah. So 40 million.
Yeah, so
Americans.
about 1 in 8 or 1 in 9.
You know what's kind of crazy to me is that's more Americans than golf and tennis combined.
That's surprising to me.
Yeah.
I'm not a golfer, but I would have guessed wrong again, as I have most of the show, that golf is more popular.
I would think golf. Yeah.
Right? But maybe it's because fishing's more accessible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like golf as a whole.
It's a thing. Like you got to go. You got to do it. Fishing.
Fishing.
You just bank.
That's right. Which is, I mean, some of my best memories is, as a dad, as a young man, with my law partner, they're all fishing. I love to fish. I don't do it enough anymore.
Yeah, I don't fish much anymore. I grew up fishing. My grandfather always taking me fishing. We lived on lakes, different lakes growing up. So big fishing guy all growing up, but not as much. I think it's the excitement isn't there for me anymore. I don't get that adrenaline rush anymore. It's like you catch fish.
There's nothing like deep sea fishing when you put baits out and you have no idea. Like I always, like the Loch Ness monster can come out of the depths and grab one of your baits. You got a big bait, you can get a big fish. You may go all day with nothing, but if nothing's going to nibble on a, 25-pound bait.
I've done it on vacation, but I think I was hungover and it wasn't right. I've got friends that go down to Matagorda. They got a house in Matagorda and they go all the time deep sea fishing. They were just there this past weekend. I was invited, but didn't go. And the weather was bad anyway. But so
I don't do a lot of deep sea fishing anymore. Just more fly fishing, Colorado, that kind of thing. But the deep sea fishing it's exciting, man.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
So I promised you extra questions, so I'll give you one extra.
Okay.
This one is more insurance related. So I was looking for data on the largest insurance claim, and there was no definitive data out there. But what did come up is the largest insurance event, like claims event. So is that A, Hurricane Katrina, B, Hurricane Ian, C, the Lehman Brothers Bank, or D, the financial crisis of 08?
It's a great question. So the financial crisis of 08, you had more bailouts. But my guess is part of the bailout was AIG. It kind of depends on how you define. What is the question? Financial crisis?
What was the largest event? So dollar figure. I'm looking for a dollar figure, which was the largest, which caused the insurance company to pay the most.
I think if it were just a hurricane, I would have guessed Ian, but the financial crisis was... that's going to be a tough one to beat if insurers had to pay out what I think they did. I think that's what I'm going to go with.
Financial crisis
of 08.
See, I knew this would be a tough one, but I figured when you saw the answers, it'd be easy. I think if I didn't make it multiple choice, you wouldn't have got it. But yes, financial crisis of 08. And by a landslide. It was $21 trillion.
Yeah, so I mean,
Lehman Brothers was close.
Yeah, Lehman Brothers was big, but in 08, when not only banks, but you had, insurers like AIG on the verge of.
AIG was the notable one.
That was the big one. And so the amount of money that, had to be paid. Yeah, that was
So most people wouldn't think of 08 as an insurance claims event. They go, oh, yeah, real estate, killed real estate. No, insurance
it was huge.
Almost broke the insurance industry.
Huge transfer of money in 08. Yeah. I mean, I remember it vividly. I was actually in trial as a result of it. The biggest case that I ever tried and the biggest settlement that I ever obtained was because two big banks pulled out of a deal to merge two companies, Hexion and Huntsman. And so we sued them for $4.5 billion. They said they'd never pay us. And we settled it about 2 weeks into trial for $1.7 billion. So,
there you go.
Yeah. I remember the $1 billion
settlement.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time in New York and London taking depositions of investment bankers because of the financial crisis. And but their whole defense was, hey, this was a financial crisis and nobody had money. And so of course we get a pass. I'm like, well, that's not what the contract says. So
there you go.
Pretty interesting.
Love it.
Okay.
Man, so I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, this was great, Alan. Thanks very much for having me.
So how do we get a hold of you? If we want to hire the best law firm, the number one trial attorney, how do we get a hold of you?
Dalyblack.com, DALYBLACK.com. Somebody over here will find me. And
that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And who are you looking for? Well, who's your ideal client? Like who?
I mean, our ideal client, it's a hard one. It really, it's any person or business that's been hurt. In this context, any business or person that's been hurt by an insurance company. Most of those take the form of property damage claims. So, we get calls from contractors and PAs and roofers and folks that are already dealing with the policyholder. And so, if somebody needs a Goliath to square up with another Goliath on an insurance claim, we like to think that we're pretty evenly matched.
Yeah. We're going to have another episode and we're going to talk more about that kind of stuff.
Good.
But I'm kind of biased that you're the best, obviously, but
I appreciate it.
But it's not me saying it. You've won all the awards. So number one trial attorney, number one trial firm. That's Daly and Black, DalyandBlack.com. Reach out to them. These are your guys. And again, thanks for coming on the show, brother.
Hey, Alan, thanks for having me.